But I'm Karin and I run VeggieVision TV, so please pick up a flyer, and you can find us on Facebook and everything. But I work very closely, obviously, with Tim, who runs VegFest, and I have the pleasure and the honour of promoting veganism in the media. And really, with thanks to VegFest, if you see something vegan in the media, it's probably about 80% chance that it's something to do with me and Tim. Seriously, because we just don't stop. We love it. And I also veganise journalists, which is very exciting, and a few celebrities as well. And it's very interesting talking to a journalist that wants to go vegan, because they don't do it for our reasons. Our reasons might be animals, it might be health, it might be because of the planet, it might be the fact that we can't bear people are starving in other countries, but we feed animals when we could be feeding them. It could be any different reasons. But when you're talking to a journalist, they just want a really good story, which is great, because, you know, I give them support, Tim and I give them support. They bloody love it, you know, and the feedback we get is actually, now I feel so good, I don't want to stop. And that's a journalist that couldn't care less about veganism before I pick up the phone and say, oh, hello. So yeah, it's really, really cool. And I'm so looking forward to this as well, how to veganise your favourite dish. And I'm looking forward to this for a few reasons. One, because look, we have the most gorgeous Carole Royle here. And I've got to say, I mean, Carole Royle, I'm going to read out, because she's a patron of the Dr. Hadwin Trust, Friends of the Animals, Safer Medicine Company, of Animal Aid. And I had the pleasure of helping the Dr. Hadwin Trust organise an event about 11 years ago when I announced on the stage that I was pregnant, and it wasn't that I just overdosed on loads of vegan food. And I met Carole, and I just was so drawn to her. We had a giggle. It was a long time ago, and I kind of didn't know how to get back in contact with her, which is silly, because thinking about it, I probably could have just Googled and found her website. And then just randomly a few months ago, Carole actually liked one of my tweets. And I jumped up and down for joy. I thought, oh my God, it's Carole Royle. How cool is that? You'd never believe she's been veggie since 1973, which is, you know, crazy because of, you know, she looks so bloody young.
That's in the days of Cranks, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely, years ago.
Wow.
But TV, film, theatre actress, Casualty, Heartbeat, I mean, the list goes on. You'll have to Google, find her website. But we're so blessed to have Carole here today. So let's have a round of applause for Carole, because she's absolutely lovely. So thank you. And equally as exciting, Gabriela Lerner. I, again, had the pleasure of going on Gabriela's retreat, and I feel that Gabriela and I had a really great connection in Portugal. So if you get a chance, you've got to look up Gabriela, look up her retreats. There's one coming up. The location was stunning. The people were outstanding. I mean, it was like VIP networking with the most like-minded. No, but that was my experience. But what I was so impressed with Gabriela is she lives and breathes a very positive, healthy, plant-based diet. Lots and lots and lots of raw food. She is a raw food guru, got cookbooks and all sorts. But when you hear Gabriela's story, and you can feel the pain that she was in, and I've got goosebumps, for years and years and years, where she couldn't function, she couldn't get out of bed. She had to hold on to the side of a wall, of the banister, to pull herself up. God, I'm blown away. And on top of that, when she met the love of her life, her husband, stage 3 prostate cancer. 2011. And she thought her husband was mad when he suggested raw food and a plant-based diet. But they actually cured themselves of what they had. And not only that, they've gone on to inspire other people. It's just outstanding what you can do with the best diet. So, yeah, just so excited to have them both here. Look, let's flick through a few of these slides. First of all, you know, let's thank Gabriela for being here, because she's an absolute inspiration. So we want to know about veganising our favourite dishes, and this is something that I do go through the journalists with as well. And this is a lovely slide as well because, you know, down there you might want to write notes or take a picture or whatever you want to do. But these just simply are all different ways that we can substitute for eggs. You know, so whether it's a different recipe for a cake, or you need, you know, you're making a vegan quiche, or whatever it is, you know, mix and match, you can try different things, but all of these are healthy, natural, they've got, you know, like chia seeds, obviously packed with protein, and these are all absolutely wonderful egg substitutions.
Just before,
I
just noticed, since it's missing this, I've heard that you can make meringues
Oh, yes.
out of chickpea.
I think that's on there.
water.
Yeah, I've done it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So there's another one.
Yeah.
You can actually make meringues out of chickpea juice. Isn't
Yeah.
that incredible?
I know.
wonder who discovered that
I
one.
know. Aquafaba.
I reckon it's after a few pints, I reckon they managed to tip in the wrong thing, and so suddenly we've got chickpea water.
I hate wasting food, so now when I have chickpeas, I'm like, I feel really guilty for pouring away the bloody water because I think I should be making a meringue. Just pull out a few hours out of me. Well, here we go. It's the next slide. So, you know, we've got tofu, which is wonderful, packed full of protein, very low in fat, takes on the flavours of whatever we add to it. And it's just such a wonderful food to incorporate, whether it's in your curries or just scrambled tofu is a firm favourite of mine. You can tell Tony Bishop Weston put this together because I think he invented ackee. He loves ackee. It's a very Marmite kind of thing, ackee, Jamaican thing. Sometimes I've had it and it tastes like a dishcloth. Sometimes I've had it and it's not been too bad. But there we go, aquafaba, that meringue.
Oh, that's it.
I
That's
mean,
it. That's what we're
would
about.
you look
Oh,
at that and go, oh my God, that's made with chickpea water?
That's extraordinary.
It's the same consistency, and when you add what you need to add to it, it tastes no different. It's, yeah.
And I made pancakes.
Yeah?
Where's the mic?
Yeah.
Our chickpea liquid the other night.
Did you? So what did you
It
do?
worked.
Let's go straight into the
Yeah.
experts.
No,
Here we
no,
go.
don't. No way am I an expert. But I thought I would just put that in because it's not just meringues. We made pancakes. It was actually a Marks and Spencer's recipe.
Oh,
interestingly
okay.
enough, because they're getting themselves
more
together.
vegan.
Yes.
They're working hard at it. So it was chickpea, Italian. What else did we use? There was something else in there. Yeah, the Marks and Spencer's
okay.
gluten-free flour, the chickpea. Oh, and banana, that's right.
So what did you
just
do?
a
Blend
bit.
it all up?
Yeah, just as though, all in a processor, yeah.
Yeah.
And we had actually our first successful pancakes in the last 3 years. We've tried to do vegan pancakes.
And Carole, is when you say chickpea juice, you don't
Yes.
mean juice chickpeas. You mean just the liquid,
Yes,
the cooking
exactly.
liquid
Just
from the,
you know,
or from the can, or
Yes, if you use canned, it's the juice that the chickpeas
wow.
are sitting in. So, as against having to throw it down the drain and feeling guilty about it, you can keep it behind. You don't have to make just pancakes. You can use it for other things. And I presume if you use chickpeas and cook the chickpeas and you don't use canned, then I presume it's the same thing to use the water that you've just cooked them in. Yeah.
Oh, okay. You know, I've not tried that, but I don't know. I'm not a big fan of tinned food, so I sort of have some beans or whatever from time to time. But I buy, has anyone seen like a little box like that you can buy in the supermarkets? And I would always suggest organic as well, but that's because I'm a snob.
The Tesco's do a lot of
Yeah.
those box things.
Yes, that's it. And they're
My
only
old
about
man's keen on
60p, so you can have the
Yeah.
chickpeas and then you can whiz up your dessert. Has anyone tried it here, out of interest? Aquafaba, you've tried it. Did it come out well? Did
Wow,
you?
right, okay.
Marshmallows. Oh, fantastic. Oh, that's lovely. Well, look, let's have a look, because 1973 is when you went vegetarian, which is...
No,
Stop
it's
the
done.
slide.
It's
No,
you,
no,
yeah.
no, but I want to say,
Yeah.
have you noticed differences from then to now
Oh,
with
gosh.
what's available and
totally.
different ideas that you may have thought of now because there's more choice, more ingredients?
Absolutely. In fact, there's no comparison at all. In 1973, what happened was I was at drama school in 1973, and my sister had already become a vegetarian at the age of 9. And I'd always been a latent vegetarian. I never could eat, certainly not offal. I could never eat parts of an animal that were so precise, like liver or kidneys or any of that stuff. I could never do that. So I was a hypocritical vegetarian. As long as it was incognito, you know, I could eat it. But I didn't like the idea of it. Yeah. But my sister, she went the whole way, and she became a vegetarian. She's 8 years younger than me, so she was a vegetarian a long time before me. We were still living at home, and Mum used to just make her a special meal. And then I was at drama school, and this had been simmering there, you know? I mean, I never liked it. I think there's so many people out there who are latent vegetarian vegans. There's hundreds of them. They just need a tipping point. They need something to just crystallize their thoughts, and then it'll make their decision for them, which is what has more recently happened to me with regard to veganism. So I was doing a late rehearsal at drama school, Swiss Cottage we were, and it still is central. And I was living at home, and I got home to my house in Norbury, and my dad was sitting in his usual chair, smoking his usual cigarette. He was an actor as well, but he was obviously out of work. And I got back, and we were watching I, Claudius, which was on at the time. And I was transfixed by this programme. And afterwards, immediately, it was late. It was about 10 o'clock, and the news came on. And just sat there, you know, chatting, chilling out after a long day. And a news item came on about what was then the beef mountains. And it was quite a graphic news item, probably because it was quite late in the day. And a farmer was shooting calves between the eyes and throwing their bodies onto a pile. Gosh. And this pile was literally moving because they had only just been shot, some of them presumably not adequately. And I looked at this beef mountain, and there were butter mountains, and all of that stuff was going on in the news. And it was my tipping point, if you like. I thought, that's it. This is crazy. My sister Amanda has been a vegetarian for a couple of years now. I know it's possible. Intellectually, I understand it. Emotionally, I've always wanted to do it. And I've now seen the evidence of what I utterly despise. So I've never eaten meat from that day onwards. And I said to Dad, that's it, I'm never going to eat meat again. Now, Dad was a Yorkshireman. I don't know if that sounds Yorkshireist, but, and so am I, therefore. I'm half. My mum a Scot. And my sister was then a veggie. I became a veggie. Then my mother became a veggie. Daddy never became a veggie. You don't tell a Yorkshireman what he can eat. Simple as that, or at least this Yorkshireman. So we battled with him for a long time, but we never converted him. But it was very different. There were no choices. There was nothing you could go out and buy, which was an alternative to meat. Certainly no egg replacers or anything like that. And you were regarded as somewhat of an eccentric and a bit of a pain. And I remember somebody pinned a notice up on the central school notice board in the foyer. And they said, Carole, Royle, what about the people? Exclamation mark. Oh. So I wrote and I said, do you do anything for people or animals? And don't you know that if you care about animals, it goes to stand that you will automatically care about people, because compassion is all-embracing, all-encompassing. You don't just single out an animal and go, I don't like anything else. It's usually that you care about all life. Certainly that's been my experience. But you were regarded as an eccentric, and people would try to pick fights with you. They still do, but nowhere near as badly, certainly not in this country. If you went to a party or something and you said, and you know, a buffet party, and you were having bits and pieces and picking out what you could have, somebody would be standing there and they would say, well, what about the plants? They feel pain. What are you going to do about the plants? And you'd go, don't be so obtuse. Don't be so ridiculous. They don't have an... If you could be bothered to talk to them at all, you might get into a conversation about how they don't have a nervous system. So that was what you were faced with all the time. And certainly you would have to cook from scratch in terms of cookery. You didn't have... Well, I hadn't been introduced to tofu at that time. And you certainly didn't have any of the substitutes like Quorn or the protein substitutes that we've got now, that kind of stuff, the bacon things. So yes, life was much more difficult. And, you know, Bernard Shaw had his own cook back in the day, because that was even worse. So he had his own cook. He could afford it, of course. I couldn't. So you just stumbled on for years being a vegetarian. And in my defense, I have to tell you, I feel quite complicated about the fact that I'm only a fairly recent vegan. And my only excuse for that, I suppose, because I was asked by the Vegan Society many, many years ago, would I be a vegan? And, you know, it always takes, you kind of, either some people are really cool and very on it and they can become everything instantly, or it takes the more slow-witted, like me, a long time to get to the spot. I stayed a vegetarian for a few reasons. Number one, it was difficult enough being a vegetarian. Back in 1973, people picked arguments with you all the time. I used to go out to restaurants and eat out a lot. And I used to have a lot of dinner parties that I went to and that we gave. And the people who came would usually not be vegetarian or vegan. I mean, usually not. And I used to think it's actually better for me to have a situation where I can get people to empathize with me and my beliefs without me being so extreme that they switch off. And that was my reason anyway in those days for doing that. And then slowly but surely times have changed. It's recognized now. And the thing that's made me change is veganism has suddenly become, thank God, very much in focus. And we've evolved to the point now where we're much more open-minded, certainly in our country, about it. And about 6 months ago, I was doing a tour. Very difficult being a vegan on tour. You're going to, you know, Shrewsbury and God knows where you are. They don't understand Shrewsbury, Sheffield. I mean, you know, everywhere you go, you're coming out of the theatre very late at night and you're going into a restaurant. It's sometimes impossibly difficult to find food that you can eat, so you have salads and stuff, you know. Being on the road, in fact, I went into, it was Marks and Spencer's again the other day, and I went in taking some friends out for a cup of coffee, and there was nothing for me to have in the selection of cakes in the cafe thing there. So I didn't have anything. But that can be difficult at times still, even now.
And I think, you know, I think, and this is probably following on from what we were talking about yesterday, is I always ask, and, you know, is there something that's vegan? And I think that's part of, you know, raising the awareness, even if you know there's not going to be something particularly vegan friendly.
Absolutely.
But I want to go back onto the food as well. So Gabriela, you know, what would you say to inspire people as, you know, newly vegan, and what are kind of like, you know, your journey in a nutshell and easy swaps? Because you're coming from a more raw food as well.
And it's quite interesting because in my world, meringues just don't exist anymore. But then, you know, I had a husband with a stage 3 prostate cancer, and sugar was just an absolute no-no, so we just took that out. And in raw food, we don't really substitute not all of the foods, but there are some. I mean, you know, I love a raw pizza, and I love that more now than a cooked pizza, because every little bit of it, there's no empty calories. And I don't know whether you know about empty calories, but they are the calories we eat without nutritional value. And, you know, I eat only food now that gives me high nutritional value. If it doesn't have nutritional value, I'm not interested in it.
So what would that kind of be for us out there? What would be high nutritional value?
So, for example, you know, your spaghetti bolognese, vegan bolognese, I would do with spiralized courgette instead of the pasta, because your courgette has nutritional value, while your pasta, particularly if it's white pasta, really has no nutritional value. And I think you can do that with cooked too. You know, I wrote a blog blog post once, and it was called "My Kids Don't Like Broccoli, My Husband wants meat," and it was kind of like looking at how can you actually deal with a whole family as well, you know. And I suggested this dish where you do a courgette pasta, you make a beautiful raw tomato sauce, you warm it up for your kids so that they like it, and you put it over your raw courgette, and your husband can have some meatballs that he puts on. Now, I might be tortured for even mentioning that, but like Carole, I'm really of the opinion we cannot force people into veganism. You know, it's a journey. My kids, when I turned vegan, they thought, oh no, another crazy idea mother has. But when they saw that, and I'm 59, I'm going to be 60 this year, you know, when they saw that I'm fitter, healthier, and happier than they are, they just switched. Not because I kept going on at them about, you know, how bad meat is for them or how bad dairy is for them. So, but I do think, you know, a transition like you described, some people can do it overnight. My husband did it overnight, and it was a shock to me, you know, because I thought, what am I going to cook? What am I going to make? He just said, I'm just going to eat raw food from now on. So I developed those recipes. I do a beautiful, you had it in Portugal, the lasagna, you know,
So
which
how do
we
you
make.
a raw
Well,
lasagna?
how do you make a raw?
So coming back to how we veganise a dish.
Okay,
if you
so
like
the raw lasagna, instead of the pasta, you would take, again, we use courgette or cucumber, or you can use another kind of like thinly sliced vegetable that resembles those layers of the pasta. And courgette just lends itself because it has this slightly bland flavor. We do a gorgeous tomato sauce. We enrich it with walnuts so that it gets a bit of a meaty texture and also contains the protein and the good fats. And then I put usually some mushrooms in and some olives, and then I make a beautiful raw, sort of like feta style cheese from macadamia nuts, or you can use cashew nuts. And so you layer it just like that. And I also put in a layer of spinach. And here's a really good tip, actually, for people who like, you know, to explore raw food a little bit more, but want that cooked texture. So what I do with the spinach, I use baby spinach, organic baby spinach, and I massage it. When I teach people about raw food, I always say vegetables are like people; they really like a good massage. And so, you know, you massage the spinach in your hands with a bit of olive oil, a little bit of sea salt, and it just falls into this cooked appearance of the spinach. So then you layer that, and then you press it down, and you maybe, you know, put it in the oven on a really low temperature to just warm it through, or if you have a dehydrator, you would use a dehydrator. It is a bit of a work-intensive dish, but so is an ordinary lasagna. You know, that's just, if you cook it from scratch, it takes a bit of time, but you can then create that. I made raw shepherd's pie, you know, and you use a parsnip mash on top instead of potatoes, because parsnips you can eat raw. The same with sweet potatoes. You know, we had the teriyaki noodles.
So what for your cheese? Sorry.
Cheese.
The
yes.
cheese bit. I think a lot of people out here would be interested in. You know, lasagna, you mentioned your raw pizza.
Yes.
So for most of us, we always think of cheese. And especially if you're thinking about going vegan, you're probably thinking, what on earth am I going to do without cheese in my life?
Yes.
A lot of people find that. So what's your trick for veganising this dish with the cheese aspect? You mentioned the nuts. How do you turn macadamia nuts into
a cheese? Okay. And I have to say, for me, you know, I was easy giving up the meat and the fish, but cheese was really hard.
It's a tough one. Anyone out here finding it hard to give up cheese, or found it hard to give up cheese? Because they're actually, what is in cheese is put there for a reason to make you addictive.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever said to me, oh, I want to be vegan, but, you know, oh, I can't give up yogurt. You know, it's always cheese, and there is a reason. And once
really
you
easy.
are off of it, you lose that craving.
And
You've
cream,
got to get
you know,
off of it,
I mean,
yeah.
I was just like, I'd have cream with everything. I mean,
you?
giving up cream was also really hard.
Right.
So finding substitutes for that. So we're having cream, cheese, and yogurt. Those are the three things that I really missed. And they're so easy to make. They're literally just blended nuts, and usually you use either cashew nuts. Macadamia nuts make a bit more of a fibrous, so feta style, while cashew will make more of a creamy a kind of cheese. And you blend it, and you add a really good dairy-free, lactose-free probiotic powder, and you don't need a lot. And then you ferment the cheese. I can go into this in a bit more detail if anybody's interested afterwards. But so you can make different kinds of cheeses, including cheeses that are cuttable, you know, that are sliceable. I know in the cooked vegan cheese you can also add things like tapioca starch and things to create more like a, melted cheese kind of effect.
Okay.
But I work more with things like a feta cheese or a cream cheese or cheeses like a cheddar cheese or something like that. Yogurt, incredibly easy to make. You know, you blend water and cashew nuts and you add only a 1/4 teaspoon of probiotic powder, and you put it in a glass jar and you leave it for 16 hours, and it turns into the most gorgeous creamy yogurt. You need a really good blender in order to be able to do that. And if you don't ferment it, that's the process of the probiotic powder turning it into a yogurt, then you can just use it as a cream. Cashew cream is delicious.
Oh, for God's sake, doesn't she go on? I've not had anything since breakfast, and I've actually tasted her cheese, and I've made it on her blimmin' retreat, and I'm just picturing it now because I added goji berries, and it was incredible. You know, it tastes of cheese, but there's no fat. There's no animal product.
Well, there's fat, but there's good fat.
But it's
Raw
good
fat.
fat. That's what I mean. It's good fat. It's not bad stuff.
Yeah.
And it tastes great.
And
Have
you know
ever
what's
made-
in it, you know,
Yeah,
I think, which is
absolutely.
important. I mean, there are some really good vegan cheeses. A few years ago, vegan cheese was just like, oh, really? Honestly? But now there are some very, very good vegan cheeses that you can buy. So, you know, that makes life easier. But do look on the ingredient list. You know, I just like to know what's in my food, so I make my own.
I mean,
But,
some of them are quite processed, aren't they? So you've got to watch what you're doing with the vegan cheeses. You know, we don't mind mentioning a couple because they're all like exhibiting here.
Yeah,
Vegusto,
love Vegusto.
ViaLife are the two really big ones that are easily
Really
available
nice.
now in supermarkets and shops and whole food shops. But there's also this whole kind of what we call an artisan cheese making going on. We've got Mel upstairs from Mel's Kindness Workshops, I think. She does cheese making workshops where she'll show you how to make. I've actually tasted myself. I don't like cheese much. It's 33 years since I ate cheese. I'm not really a big cheese fan, but they actually make this stuff that is really like brie. They have a camembert now. They even have this Stilton stuff with blue kind of mould in it. It's uncannily like it's too much for me. I personally can't eat it because it's extraordinary. Carole.
But Carole, have you tried making any of the vegan cheeses yourself, or is that the next step? Grab your mic. Have you tried making any of maybe the raw cheeses, or do you think that's the next step?
That would be the next stage.
Yeah.
No,
Have you got any favourite dairy-free cheeses or dairy-free products that you sort of easy swaps for people?
ViaLife I have used extensively, and
Blue
I like it.
Island's really good
And is it ViaLife that does like a Cheshire with cranberries and
Oh no, that's cheese.
Yeah, that's a Blue Island. Cheese
and then,
is brilliant too. Yeah, they're really good.
Yeah.
Sainsbury's. It's from Sainsbury's, that one.
Yeah.
And that one is good too. But you know, I quite like the processed cheese.
Okay.
I mean, I quite liked that in the old days, bit of processed cheese. So it rests quite easy with me, and I have that ViaLife that's a little bit, you know, you cut through it. That's cool for me.
The dangerous one of that ViaLife is it can come ready sliced. and it just disappears out of my fridge, you know, slice by slice.
And Sainsbury's do nice cream cheeses as well.
Yes, they do.
Because we wouldn't want to lose our cream cheese and cucumber sandwiches, which we do quite a lot.
So, Carole, when you go on vegan, what was the dish you miss most, and have you managed to sort of recreate it?
Yeah,
with
I have
a vegan
actually.
option.
Yeah.
What was it you missed the most?
There are two that I've just done quite recently, and I did them as an experiment to see if I could do them.
Right.
It's an artichoke dish which I stuff with bread and onion and some garlic and cheese, and it's not got egg in it. And you open it up and put the bread inside, having cooked the artichokes, and that's fine. You can use the VeggieVision, or I'm sure you know the cheese that you create yourself. And then it was the hollandaise that I thought was going to be a little bit of a problem. So I experimented with that, and it worked great. It worked great with the egg replacer. I used an egg replacer.
A hollandaise?
Hollandaise sauce.
A hollandaise sauce,
yes.
Yeah? Okay.
So what was that? Do you remember what the ingredients would be?
Yeah, well, you usually, hollandaise sauce is traditionally basically just lemon, butter, and eggs.
Wow, okay.
So it's a vegan's nightmare, really. I did it with egg replacer and obviously animal fat-free margarine and lots of lemon. I was like a lemony hollandaise anyway.
Love lemon.
And it worked. And you always have to do a lot of that because even when you're making a traditional one, you didn't want it to curdle. So you do a lot of that.
Yeah.
And it worked. And the other night I did a carbonara, and a carbonara is not a vegan dish, is it? Let's be honest. But it worked. It worked.
So what was your carbonara then?
So we used the pasta. I'm sorry.
No, this is really interesting because carbonara was one of my favourite dishes.
Oh, really? We use a gluten-free carbonara because we are mainly gluten-free as well. So we had a gluten-free spaghetti, and then the VeggieVision cheese. And I used yogurt, actually, the soya yogurt, but normally I would use a vegan cream, like, what is the vegan cream that we have? Anyway, the little cartons that you can get, the cream substitute. And we used, it's Tesco's, I think, that do a vegan bacon thing. And I fry those into bits, sprinkle them on at the end so they don't go all soggy. And there it is.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Gosh, I've
Family
made me
gave me
really
the thumbs
hungry.
up. I mean, I'm not an orthodox, I suppose one might say. I cut corners, and I sometimes try to duplicate meat eaters.
Well, that's it. That's what definitely.
Meals. I don't always.
Yeah.
I don't often, but I do that. And
I think there's a cookbook, isn't there? Carole Royle's
Cutting corners.
Cutting corners. Who would buy that? I would buy that.
Well, I think we all need to cut corners at times,
we're
because life's
busy,
busy and
absolutely.
we have other things to do. So I think that's a great idea.
I love it. So in a nutshell, what is maybe your one top tip for veganising a more traditional dish? Is there one thing that you think, I can't live without this, or this worked really well? I know that's a bit on the spot, or one thing for everyone to take away.
I'll answer that for myself. Cheesecake.
Yeah?
When I went vegan in 1984, I had to give up cheesecake, and I just loved cheesecake. It was only 3 years ago that I actually come across vegan cheesecake again. And of course now there's this whole science in making raw vegan cheesecakes,
they're beautiful.
which are not only really tasty, but they're also really healthy because they're generally made with raw fat.
Yes.
Avocado, I believe.
That's
is
right. Tally did an avocado one with lime, lots of lime for our
avocado,
brother.
and then using things like agave syrup as sweeteners or date syrup instead of your refined sugars. Is I must say, raw cheesecake, quite happily sit down. And again, there's some really good raw cheesecakes upstairs. Elspeth.
Are you on commission, love?
We must have a look.
I am
God.
a bit. Elspeth's raw cheesecake, although don't get there before I do, because I haven't been there this morning.
All I would say, apropos your question, in a nutshell, is that when I was a vegetarian and not a vegan, and I had back in '73 and those 70s years, I would have a whole load of ordinary cookbooks. And I wouldn't be put off, and I don't think anybody should be put off at all, because having done a carbonara, I know anything is possible, frankly.
Lovely.
And so you just take your traditional recipes, whether they are meat eaters' recipe books or vegetarian recipe books or something, and adapt them.
That's
you
great.
just totally adapt them.
Yeah.
You know, I once did kidneys in mustard sauce. Well, of course, I wouldn't have gone near a kidney even when I ate meat. So I got mushrooms, and I adapted the mustard sauce, and it was yummy.
Yeah.
Lovely.
You just adapt
Thank you.
everything. And finally, of course, all those books have gone away, and now I've got my veggie books, and I'm adapting those to vegan books.
And you're going to write your own one.
And
That's
it's a really nice thing to do, isn't it? It's quite creative when you say, you know, I really want this dish. I sometimes do that too. I think about a particular dish that I used to like, and I think, how can I make that work? I think mushrooms and walnuts as kind of meat substitutes are really good. And then obviously, you know, cashews or white nuts for the creamy thing. I was just thinking about the mayonnaise as well. I think I just couldn't live without mayonnaise. So to make my own mayonnaise in a vegan style that is nutritious that's probably my go-to, because that can go with anything, you know. It makes a salad dressing, it goes onto people I know. And it's just a great thing to make things taste nice, whatever it is, you know.
Well, look, obviously Carole's going to write her cookery book, but you have got some. Can
got one
people
already.
buy them today?
Yeah. You
Okay.
too. I'm just kind of like out the door and turn left, and I'm over there, Radiant on Raw. I've got my book there. It's called Food Heroes. It's a raw food cookbook, but it's really easy for people who haven't done raw food before. So.
Well, guys, look, just stay there for a second. I must take a stage selfie. So please join in and smile and wave. We'll just be 1 second, and then we'll give these beautiful ladies a lovely round of applause. So is that all right? You're all right to be in my picture? Oh, thank you. Come on, quick. Got just, this look, because look
Karin
at the
loves the
audience. They're
selfies.
so. It's the audience. They're so
There you go,
lovely.
yeah, make sure we're all like, that's it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh no, we want Carole. Yay.
Well done.
Oh, thank you. Should we have a
round of applause.
really lovely round of applause for Carole Royle and Gabriela Lerner? I think they're amazing. Very lucky to have these lovely ladies. Thank you so much. Thank you.